All right, so let's talk about a couple things when it comes to shareholders. So everybody knows what the board is, right? So every company has a board of directors, okay? And this board of directors is, a bunch of people who, led by the chair, make a lot of the decisions, okay? Make a lot of the decisions about a company. And, you're like, who decides when a stock split should happen? Who decides when an acquisition should take place? Who decides all these things? Well, it's the board. And the board is, depending on the company, oftentimes is directly or indirectly voted on by shareholders, but other times it's not. It's based on who owns the most shares and who, there's a lot of things, right? There's a lot of things at play. Shareholders can get rid of them if they want, but you have your board of directors, okay? And when you have a board of directors here, they make the decisions, including, hiring and firing C-level executives and a lot of those decisions, because you can't just have all the shareholders vote for stuff every time you want to have it done, because then nothing would get done. So it's kind of like your representatives in Congress, right? Like you have your representatives, they represent you, and you could get rid of them if you want. Now, oftentimes you'll also hear, you'll also hear that somebody on the board is being let go, or you've got a change on the board, or you're being a new appointments on the board. It's kind of like your governing body of the company. Think of the company as a government, and this is your elected representatives, right? Sometimes you'll even hear about activist investors, right? So activist investors will be somebody or a group of people who buy up a significant portion of a company's shares and force their people onto the board because they want to make changes of the company. And we hear about this all the time. We've heard about it with Bed Bath & Beyond. We see it with Carl Icahn and with all these guys. They all like to do this kind of stuff, right? Icon's doing it right now. He's trying to buy up enough McDonald's to get 2 members on the board to make McDonald's stop buying cow or pigs from places that don't follow certain guidelines for their health and wellness, right? So you see activist investors oftentimes. So now you got the board, okay? Now, one thing the board of directors is in charge of is allocating money or incentives for, let's say, C-level executives. So you might say to yourself, all right, Stocky, I've heard of golden parachute. What is a golden parachute? I spelt it wrong, but fuck off. What is a golden parachute? Well, golden parachute is basically an incentive for a CEO to either leave their company and come there or to stay on board. And you might say to yourself, well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, think of it kind of like a contract guarantee. Let's say the NFL, right? There's a clause in that says, this contract is guaranteed even if he gets injured, right? You can't not pay him money. Same kind of thing here, right? They'll say, hey, listen, we're going to give you a contract to be our CEO, right? And if you are kicked out or voted out, because the CEO may be like, listen, I like your company, but that's not enough incentive for me to stay. How do I have protection? How do I know you're not just going to kick me out and then I'm on my ass again? Well, we'll do this. And then they negotiate and he says, okay, if you're kicked out or voted out, you get the right to 50 million additional shares. And that's the incentive, right? That's the incentive for the CEO. So the CEO will be like, okay, cool. So I'll work there. And if I don't like it, I can leave, but they can't get rid of me. And if they do, I get 50 million shares. So golden parachutes are in play for that. But there's the opposite as well, okay? And that's what this brings to, okay? And that is, what is a poison pill? Just like they offer incentives for good things, they can also add little things that are bad. Think of it like legislation, right? How many times do you see a legislation, right, that's this thick in Congress, and it's called the Give Kids Free Lunch Bill? You would think that everybody in the world would vote for that. Why would anybody vote against Give Kids Free Lunch? Because somebody will come across and they'll say, hey, we need you to sign this. They'll be like, okay, I'll sign it, but we're going to put an earmark in here that even though the bill's called this, if it's passed, oil executives pay no tax. And then the next guy, they go, hey, I'm going to put an earmark in here too that says abortion is illegal. All right, let's just big controversial shit, right? So then when the bill gets before, somebody says, I'm not voting for this because it says abortion is illegal. I don't want it to be illegal. I want people to have a right to choice or whatever. But that's not what the headline is, this person voted against giving kids free lunch. This ends up being an accidental poison pill because if you want this, you lose everything else. So now that we know that, let's talk about a poison pill in this case. In this case, a poison pill is we are supposedly protecting shareholders by saying, if X is done, this will trigger Y. What is the poison pill in this case? In this case, let's go back in time. Elon Musk took 9.6% stake in Twitter, right? Became the largest single shareholder, which is no longer the largest single shareholder. Vanguard came in and made it 10%. So now he's number 2. At 9.6%, he was the largest single shareholder. They offered him a seat on the board. Hey, you're the largest single shareholder by a lot. We're going to let you, be on the board. And he was going to take up the offer, but then he declined it. Why? Most likely because they said, hey, not only does that mean you can't own, because see, they wanted him on the board not because he was going to bring good ideas, but because by being on the board, he wasn't allowed to own more than 14.9%. So they're capping him. They're saying, hey, come on the board. Yeah, come on the board. We know that he can't own more than that. They probably also told him that he had to shut up and chill out. So he said, no, I'm good. So now he comes out and says, I'm going to offer $54.20 a share to buy the whole company. Why that number? Well, it's in the 50s and he loves the number 420. They put what's called a poison pill in there. And they went ahead and voted unanimously over the weekend and said, if any single person or entity owns more than 15 buys on the market, 15% of shares, if a single person ends up owning more than 15%, buys out up to 15% or more, then we are going to flood shares. What does that mean? Fuck it. You don't own 15% anymore because we're just flooded more in there. And what does that do? That dilutes the stock. So it's like a trigger. It's like a trap. It's like a trap door. Now, you might say to yourself, but that's not in the best interest of shareholders. Well, when does our government act in the best interest of its citizens? It doesn't, right? They're protecting themselves. So that's what this is right now, okay? That's the poison pill. They're not stopping him from buying shares. They can't do that. But what they can do is, now, the worst case scenario is they get voted out as a board. But the question is who's going to vote them out? How many people actually go that own shares and vote? When's the last time you actually voted on something that you own shares on? Probably not, never. That's the poison pill. The poison pill is, if any single person, they didn't say Elon, if any single person or entity ends up owning 15% or more shares, buys that much on the market, 15%, it triggers a flood of shares into the market. We dilute it and they lose value. They no longer have 15%. They have less than 50% because we've added more shares. But there is a loophole. There is a loophole. He loves to do, love him or hate him, he's a fucking adult child like the rest of us. And I think that's why we all like him. Even though he's manipulating stocks and doing everything we hate Bezos for. Bezos isn't a meme lord. So Bezos is the enemy, and Elon, who's just as bad or even worse, is the cool kid, right? He likes to go cryptid. So he put out Loving Me Tender in reference to a Elvis Presley song. Now, for those of you guys who remember, I actually found one of his cryptic tweets a long time ago where he talked about blasting certain types of music, salsa and polka music from Tesla, and I put it together. And I said, he capitalized the S and the P. I said, I think they're going to go to the S&P 500. And I shit you fucking not. They ended up going and listing on the S&P. It was crazy. Now, Loving Me Tender. Why does this matter? A lot of people are thinking that he's talking about a tender offer. This is a somewhat, and I haven't read all the details of the poison pill, but this is somewhat of a go around. What is a tender offer? A tendered, or to tender an offer. This is where someone can go, rather than through the exchange, go directly to shareholders and offer to buy their shares at a significantly higher price. So let's say shares are at $48. He can go and say, hey, I want to buy, 10 million shares. I'll offer you $60. So now you're able to get people off their shares because you're giving them a super high premium. And you're like, but why? Why would I do that? Because then you want a controlling stake and you have to go around that 15% shareholder via the market, right? Now, I haven't looked at the details of the poison pill, so I don't know if this is a go around yet or not, but I would assume that if this is a plan that he's taken, that there is a loophole here. And instead of buying it via the market, he buys it privately. He overpays for it. And that way, he gets shareholders to give him shares at a premium, and he overpays for them in order to get around that 15% poison pill. Because if a lot of times the poison pill is if they buy those shares via the market, right? Through the market, through the exchange. But owning shares through a private buy may be a go-around. So that is where we're at on this. Poison pills happen all the time. There's all types of poison pills out there. There's poison pills that if a CEO, you have the golden parachute, there's also a poison pill for if a CEO is scalped by another company, or a poison pill if somebody sells a certain amount of shares, or a lot of times poison pills are put in place long before anything happens to stop activist investors, because they would rather, it's called cutting off your nose to spite your face, right? They would rather destroy the stock in the short term than give up the controlling seat or controlling, percentage to Elon, right? They think that it's better to dilute the shares now and then buy him back later on in order to stop him from taking it over and make drastic changes. So that right there is why a poison pill is put in place all the time. Now, is it legal? Well, it's a private company. Do shareholders get screwed? Do they get a voice? No. But just like they always say with politicians, well, if you don't like what the politician's doing, just vote him out next time. That's how democracy works. First of all, we're not a democracy. But second of all, but nobody pays attention. There'll be something else in the news by the time this vote comes up. Nobody will remember it, and then all of a sudden these people stay on the board forever. Yes, they can be sued, and Elon's being sued by two different class action lawsuits. Right now, Tesla shareholders who said that he manipulated the stock back when he said it was overpriced, and then 420 and funding secured and private and everything like that. And a federal judge and the SEC just agreed with them and greenlit them to go on with that. And Twitter shareholders are suing him because of the tweets he talked about and the stuff he put out without telling anybody, the whole 9 yards. So whatever, there's a lot going on here. But that's what a poison pill is, and what a golden parachute and what a tendered offer is. So if anybody says oh my God, Elon's not going to be able to take this, or Elon's, what's a poison pill? You can be like, it's put in place to screw him over. What do you mean? Well, blah, 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 blah. There you go. That is a TLDR. Now, before any of you guys out there, well, actually, Stocky, this is not a tender offer. It depends on if they're doing an exchange through the actual this, or private, or a little. Shut the fuck up, okay? This is a TLDR for people who don't know what the fuck they're looking at and want to understand it, okay? I'm not in here to get into specifics, okay? All right?